Hello, I'm Philipp from United Codes, and today we're gonna look at CSS variables in Oracle Apex. So let's get started. So let's see just how CSS variables work. First off, there's also a synonym for them that's called CSS custom properties. So that's basically just the same, but I think CSS variables just is easier to use. And I prepared some super small template here in the Apex Template Studio. It's a small website from United Codes where you can just play around with HTML and CSS and create your own templates. And I've just prepared this small text box with just a header and two paragraphs. Nice example where we can see how to use variables. So I switched to the CSS tab. For now, there's nothing much going on in here, but let's actually create a first CSS variable. We can add that to any existing selector. So I'm now do a top rule in the body, and we can create a variable by just writing dash dash. That's just the general prefix of any variable, and then the variable name. So we can say my font, for example, and then we just say a value, for example, Times New Roman. Can be like any CSS values. It can be like pixels, it can be a number, it can be like part of a thing. So variables are very flexible in CSS, and you don't need to type them anyway. Okay, so now I have this, but it doesn't do anything yet. We just have now the value stored in the variable. We haven't used it yet. So for example, I can go to H2 and I can say font family. That's just the normal CSS attribute for giving or setting a font. And I can then reference my own variable by saying var and then referencing it in this var function. So now we can see the H2 is now in Times New Roman. Thing is, CSS is still cascading. So I've applied it to the body, which is pretty unspecific. So if I add like another one here, H2 body 2, I have another one here, and I give this now a class of special H2 or something. Now I can reference it. So let's say H2 dot special H2, and then I can say here, this time I overwrite, and that's what I can do. I can overwrite my variable and say, okay, now here I actually want another font. So you can see I've overwritten my variable, so it's defined here, but this, just like CSS works, this is a more specific thing. So body is pretty generic, it's just like anything. But in CSS, if I use a more specific selector, like in this case I have like the tag and a class, then this will win, and for my H2 here, and then I say, okay, for this one, scoped to just the matching selector, I override it with arrow, and then I can use that. All right. So let's, in the next part, see how Apex actually utilizes these kind of variables. So now I prepared like a small demo with two buttons. These are basically identical HTML Apex native buttons. Only difference is the label and icons. And so let's actually like look what's going on in the behind the scenes. So I'm gonna use my Chrome DevTools. You can use your favorite browser, inspect the buttons, and so here on the left side you can see I am on this A item with the class tButton and tButtonHot, and on the right side I get the styles of this element. And interesting, like in here, this one here says it's matching on tButtonHot. It's a hot button, so it matches here. We can see that Apex already utilizes a lot of CSS variables. So for example, the background color here is defined like with the color, the text color also. and a lot more. Interestingly here, a button hover text color, it uses var again and references. I can click on it. This one just. So instead of just defining white again, it's going to reference this one. And that's actually how it should be. Don't repeat yourself as a rule. So define your color once and then reference it later. And also interestingly here we have another selector, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the universal theme background styles. But here we have like a font weight CSS variable, and you can see here it's going to reference a variable again, and then we have like comma 700. And if we look here at it, it's like this dark gray, and that means the variable is not even defined. I'm not sure like why it's referenced here if it's not defined, but what the comma is doing is providing a fallback value. So this doesn't exist, so we're going to use 700 as a font weight here. And actually here we have a lot of stuff going on. So here we have a lot of fallbacks. So var button state background, button type background color, button background color, and then transparent. And button background color is actually this one, so that gets applied. Let's do here. And like state and type, I'm not 100% sure like what they are, but I guess like there are specific conditions where there's one set for state. Universal theme is complex, so yeah. Okay, so now that we have like this variable, so let me actually like grab these two, and what we can do is so I prepared like a selector, so we're gonna use UC box, which is the outer div, and then just t button hot. I use that so I have like a more specific CSS rule that wins over just the generic t button hot class selector. And what can I do here is I can just change the variables again as we used to. Let's say pink, and let's say black, for example. And then we can change how the button looks. So if we wouldn't like it, we could change it here. You can also do it in the theme roller. But this is just to point out, if you don't like a specific thing in Apex, and maybe if you don't like a specific thing that where it isn't an option in theme roller, you can just change the CSS variables behind that. And like from a result point of view, this is actually doing the same. Like the result is the same as if I would just say background color and color. But there is a huge difference still in it. So it looks the same, but here I am now basically overwriting some of the specific rules from Universal Theme. So the rule where it applies to variables is now overwritten by me. This is now hard-coded colors. Where here I leverage the same rules that the Universal Theme developers intended to be for a button. I just changed the variable, and that's what variables are for. In a way, they're an API for us to hook into to change the look and feel of Apex without messing like with the style sheets. We can just say change this one variable, and we don't dig deep into the CSS stuff. So this is a more recommended, actually from Tim, recommended and like upgrade tolerant way. So you just changing variables, you won't get into much trouble in the future. So rather use that than just using this approach where you directly change colors. Okay. Cool thing is that there are actually, let me quickly change this back to Vita. In the Universal Theme app, that's apex.oracle.com/ut, in this left reference section, there's one tab called CSS Variables. And here we can actually get a list of the stuff that's documented from the CSS variables. So we have got some color palettes, so the theme colors in here, we have like the stateful colors, and also interestingly we have like component background color. This is just the white, component border, border width, border radius, shadows, default text color and stuff. And yeah, you can all leverage these like you want for overwriting or creating your own structures. So let me quickly show a few things. So first, giving the UC box the shadow here. Now it says like some popping shadow in here, and I didn't need to like define it myself. I can just reference the Apex native shadow, and if the Apex native shadow changes for some reason in the future, my box here will still look Apex native because it's just a reference to the Apex native shadow. Here I just changed the color to like the warning color. Doesn't make sense that much. But for example, for our button here, let's say we change themes, for example, to Redwood Light. Okay, it still looks the same. Vita Dark still looks the same. Okay. Depends on your use case. If you have your company theme, where you just say, okay, I want my buttons to be pixel perfect, this color, because that's just our brand guidelines. Or if you build like, for example, a plugin that like anybody should be able to use no matter what theme he uses, then it's actually advisable to use like colors from the color palette. So for example, let's find another pink shade here. For example, this 25, for example, can just get that and say, okay, we just reference the theme color, and we just say the contrast is this one. So now it actually should be white. Yep, it is. Then what's happening if I change my theme? We actually get a different color that's fitting to this other theme. And that's also one nice advantage. So using variables or referencing the theme variables where you don't hardcode your own colors, you will get the benefit of anybody can use your stuff with his own theme and it will look all right. It's for dark, but I think for dark and light, this doesn't change. So also in this app, you can actually see the differences. For example, here look at or rather look at these colors, and then if I go to Redwood Light, you can also see here, of course, the same principle works in here. You see the different colors, the different state colors, different, I think the border radius is different, and maybe shadow. In the Universal Theme app on the same CSS Variables page, there's also a nice example on like specifying your own components. Like for example, if you want to create your own card template, you can just pass in a template in the cards region. It could be looking like something like this. It's a nice example, it's custom. And here, and the Apex Dev team shows how to do a nice card, custom card, by utilizing the variables border color, border radius, box shadow, background color, and all the stuff here mostly utilizes the variables, like some stuff not, like font size. That's okay-ish. I mean, some stuff is maybe content driven. For example, the text size. But the nice stuff about this, if I change this to Vita Dark, everything will look perfectly fine. Great. Okay, so I've copied like a classic report HTML into the Template Studio, and so we get a default look of a classic report in here. Just copied it. I gave it an ID. I'm gonna use that later. And what I want to do change for this one is like the alternate highlighting color. So if you look at the first, third, and fifth row of this report, we can see there's this grayish background where the other ones are white. And that's the default highlight color, and I may not like it. So I want to change it. So let's look for a variable we can find to change it. So I'm going to use inspect on this row, but actually I'm going to land on the TD, so on the cell. So I'm going to move up one level. This is the row, and I expect something to be in here. And if I have a look on the right side here, so actually the first one is the T report altros default, T report TR, and then this nth child odd. So this actually gives us a hint. This could be it. It only applies to like every other row because of the odd CSS rule. And we can see here there's a variable called UT report cell background color, and it's using another variable UT report cell alt background color. So now, which are we going to actually change? Should we change this one or this one? So this is a question, and this is actually quite complex, of first like scoping. So I'm gonna add like a rule or override it specific to my report with this ID. I could also do it for like body and change it in there, but then we actually would get into, we would like change all the uses of that variable in any place in the universal theme, and also for future components that might implement that. So I would be careful with doing that. For our case, we either want to like change classic reports. So let's maybe find a class that represents classic report, like T report. Or in my case, just for this single instance of a report, I want to scope it to my static ID. Then also let's look back at this rule. We can see this rule here is the one which has the odd applied to it. So this is already the ones that using the variable. And if we would like use this one and just plainly override it, we can quickly do that, then actually finally if I use the correct selector here, all change, because I now overrode the rule that says only do that to the odd ones. So instead what I want to do here is, we can see actually this now nicely in place. The rule with the odd ones is now overruled by my static ID here. So instead I want to actually use this universal theme variable that's referenced in this rule. So let's say, okay, let's close this again. Let's say this I didn't catch the right one. I think I now have like, this sounds like the generic ones. So this is the old background color. So I just set the other one, the one without the alt. So it's just the opposite thing. So now this is overwriting the global UT report cell alt background color, scoped only for my component. And this looks actually quite ugly. So let's maybe do like something like that, for example. And so yeah, I've like overwritten that. Next thing, maybe let's do like, I'm not sure, this looks nice with the task name in here with the blue. So again, look here, and we can see here, oh, there's a UT link text color. So I can just override that, I guess. So where do I want to override this? For the links or just the headings? So I can look for, if I want to do it for the headings, I can just do my CR and then TH, and then I can say, okay, in here this should be green. And then I can overwrite this one here. Again, looks pretty ugly, but I guess you get the point of that. If for some reason the rule doesn't work, take a look at it, and then, for example, you can see here where it does work, var utlink text, so does point to my green thing, but of course there could be like some universal theme rule that's more specific, but I guess again, because I use an ID here, I will always win. But if I would just use like a t-report class, I'm not sure if this would actually win. And I could either use, it does actually, could either use important or think about a more specific rule. It can always be more specific if I add just more to it. So like, for example, instead of going directly to th, can just go to first tr or like table, t-report, report, add more classes to it, and eventually I will win. All right, so yeah, you can apply that approach to your whole application, to any component you see. CSS variables are already deep in Apex. Change the stuff you don't like, and I hope you learned something from this. I hope you think this was interesting. Let me know in the comments if you have some feedback, if you have some ideas for future content, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much.